everybody. Happy Friday to you, like Nick Floro says in chat. Happy Friday, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. We've got a nice handful of folks already in. Kim is here, and Nick, Cheryl, Tom McDowell, Sienna is here again. Thanks for joining us. Our guest this morning is Tanacha Gaines from Atlanta, Georgia. And this week has been pretty busy. Fourth showcase this week, but all of them have been fascinating, as I'm sure this one will be. And as most of you know already, in the format for these showcases is I've got a bunch of questions. Like right now, I've got 11 questions loaded into the Ask a Question area down on the screen. We've got about 30 minutes to get through them. And this is just our opportunity to get to know some of the community members like Tanacha. And if you guys have questions, please add them in chat, throw them in the Ask a Question area. And with that, let's just dive right into this. So, Tanacha, it seems like you've been a trainer. You've been an instructional designer for quite a few years.
I have. I've been doing this for a long time. And it's funny because I started off with, it's just I started off in the military. I'll start there. And I was IT. I was a systems repair. I built networks and troubleshot computers, receivers. I was in the United States Army intelligence soldier, and I was kind of in that realm of supporting people that were doing the secret stuff and all the systems that they worked on. So we kind of had to have a large range of skill set to be a team to support those folks because we had this clearance. And so that was my IT background. And in that, I became kind of like the go-to person because I absorbed information so fast of creating processes and training, onboarding new folks. It was like, we didn't call it L&D, you know what I mean? It was just like I was that person that, acclimated everyone to the skill, to the things that they needed to do.
Wow. So your introduction to instructional design was from the military?
Yeah, it's weird. And it kind of was, that's not what you called it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So was it, did somebody notice that, like, oh, you're really good at absorbing this information and documenting the processes. You're going to be a trainer.
And that's just it. They didn't call it. And when I was in the military, the compartmentalized job that I did, it was just that I was that person. I wasn't assigned as a trainer. I was a what they called a strategic systems repairer. Is what they call it. We were part of the electronic maintenance division, is what they called it, right? Yeah. In intelligence. And I just became that person that there were no processes. It was just a bunch of guys, and I was the only girl. Just a bunch of guys, and like, come on and do this. And I'm like, okay, do you have it written down somewhere what I'm supposed to be doing next? And they didn't have anything. And I'm just like, okay, while I'm taking notes, I'm just like, kind of documenting and keeping things in order. And then the next person came in, and I'm just like, just let me help you. Then there was just groups and droves of folks, and I just became that person. But I was still doing my job. I was still going out, pulling wire and installing fiber optic cable and troubleshooting, receiver cards and things like that. It's just that I was that person. So I think that was my introduction, and my official assignment as someone that was a trainer. I would say I became like a help desk person for the university that I went to. Wow, okay. And then that was more of an official, more training, because when I started to do calls, they ended up using me to be a trainer for faculty and students on the systems like the Banner system, and using scanners and using their computers or the new Microsoft systems or something like that. And I kind of like got off the phones to like these personal one-on-ones or these group trainings. It just all organically went there. And so then I went to school for.
Interesting. Okay. Like Cheryl's going, oh, Banner, like she's saying in chat.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
And then
telling you, I was telling Lewis, Generation X.
That's us. Yeah. And then the cheat sheet thing, like Kim's saying that she had the same experience where people would ask if they could use her cheat sheet,
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So when
Exactly.
you were, let me just ask, like when you were in the military, how were you documenting these things? Did you just start out like writing stuff down and
I
having it like
started writing
handy?
stuff down on a pad, and it's so funny because, God, I don't even want to tell you what version of Microsoft. I'm not going there.
Yeah. Okay.
What version of
Okay.
Word, whatever. But I did end up typing it, and it had like a little booklet, and it was just some main points, major things, like when you process someone in their in processing um, process or whatever, as they're in processing as normal as a soldier on this site, in this field, in this department, weave in there some of these skill sets that they need to have, or preparation that they need to have before we put them out on the floor to repair and fix things. There's some things that they need to know. Not only just like the technical skill that they needed to know, but it was like these things that they needed to know about being on the floor, on an intelligence floor,
Mm.
with information floating around, and how to conduct yourself, and making sure that you're not, taking certain things back to our facilities that should remain in the area that they are. Um, as well as, like, here are some 5 key things that you need to know when we troubleshoot, when we do technical tickets or something like that. These are the processes that you need to take, and this is how the system works. No, there was nothing to tell you how the system works that you're putting in, like Remedy or something. Like,
Yeah.
there were no manuals.
So you found yourself that you were competent at this type of thing, and
It's just
so
what I did. I felt like,
yeah.
if I reflect as a child, I that's what I did. Even in classes in school, I became that person. Like, did you remember what the teacher said? And I'm like, oh, you guys, This is what I was a
That's great.
little teacher with my little notebook.
Yeah. And so looking at your LinkedIn profile, then you did kind of a stint working for like the frame shop we were mentioning in
Yes,
the green room.
yes,
And then
yeah.
you moved on to working in education, or how did that go?
Yeah, so at the frame shop, they really hired me as like the web operations, because I was my skill set in the school, when I went to school, was information design, so I was heavy on web design, and some, to some degree, some e-learning design. And so they hired me because they had a sales team and a new system, and so I could do some network admin for them, as well as be that training and support for their sales team in all the new things that they had to do with the system that they had. So
Nice.
that frame shop, I kind of ended up doing those type of things, and then I moved on to, doing more, some project management for different for a specific company, and that, again, that was like building the manuals and process on dealing with vendors and things like that.
Wow. Okay. All right. And so now where do you feel like you actually got started to get your formal instructional design chops going?
University.
Yeah.
I worked for the University System of Georgia. They had a program called eCore, and I got the official instructional designer title there. And it was awesome because that was, now I wasn't in military, I wasn't in business or manufacturing and wholesale, which were those last 2 jobs. But then I became, like, in higher ed, became the instructional designer lead for a few folks that we had on the team, and was there for the faculty. We had about maybe 70 faculty that were teaching online, using a specific system. At that time, it was Blackboard. And they had curriculum. Oh my gosh, I don't know, 200 classes, and like curriculum for all those classes, and just managed all that. So there was more LMS work, making sure you make the SCORM and everything is all together.
Yeah.
So that's when I got my official instructional design title.
How did you feel like when you actually got in there formally as an instructional designer?
I
Did you
was
feel like you
so
found
well
your path?
seasoned. I felt like I was definitely a value add because of my past experience, not only just with people and teams, but with organization. And like, when I got there, there was some organization that was needed, and again, processes needed to take place, and being able to honestly come down to the level of the faculty member, and understanding that really at that time, not everyone was doing online or teaching online. And some of
Mhm.
these faculty members, this was their first online class that they had to teach. And so you had to kind of get them out of, don't just, upload a bunch of documents to tell them to read it. Like, we have an LMS, you need to use those different features to facilitate knowledge transfer for the folks. So it was really good.
Yeah. Yeah. So you felt like you were on the right path. You like, I'm an instructional
I
designer
felt
now.
like I'm an instructor. Like, I really felt like I wasn't this random ad hoc person that knows things, or like, this is our process person, or this is our person that does this and that, or make sure everything's in line. But I had an official, felt like a career.
Yeah, that does make a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like when you actually feel like you have a title, even though being an instructional designer can feel so sometimes like abstract, and maybe not everybody knows what it is, but you had it.
Yeah, I had, and again, you don't know what to call it or what you're doing. And even in the instructional design field and in learning and development, they call you something different at different times, and they think you're like pigeonholed into just this. They think it's just training, and it's not.
Right.
So
yeah, I think that's one of the bigger challenges I've seen in this industry with folks. I mean, Kara, who's in the audience now, did a session on that, L&D job titles, and they can just be so varied and different. So now that you're an actual L&D professional, what's your favorite part of it? Like, what do you like most about being in learning and development?
honestly, I like believe it or not, the variety. Because people, when you're in it, well, when you're outside looking in again, oh, you're an instructional designer, or you're just a trainer, you work with trainings. That's not always the case. So the variety of being in this field is that, yes, I can be a trainer. I can train the trainers. I can develop the curriculum. I can do a lot of different things at a lot of different levels that really uses my skill set. And so I just like the variety. And I never feel like I'm doing something mundane. Probably now, because I'm in the consultant world, that like things change and clients change, but really being in this field allows me to use a lot of different skill sets, from graphic design and manipulation, e-learning, to process development, change management, project management, like a lot of different things. So
yeah,
I'm that type of person. So this is perfect for me.
You have a really, really varied background. Like, like you're saying, you were in the military and you got your IT chops there. And then you moved more into like multimedia and, and like you're saying, like web design and stuff at the frame shop. And then you formally became an instructional designer. You also like were an adjunct instructor at Art Institute. Right. And now you're working as a human capital and organizational transformation consultant for Deloitte. So talk about that. What's that about? What do you do there?
Oh man, I do a lot. I will say that they hired me initially, honestly, as a contractor. They took me from Verizon. Well, I kind of like took their offer from Verizon, but they hired me as a contractor. They were developing a system for a client, which was the state of Georgia, a big system for the client. And they had to, form the part of the contract was to, once we develop this system, we'll provide some training or help you, to do training. And so at the beginning of the development stages of the system development, they needed to start generating their team. And so they brought me on to lead that. There was like maybe four core folks that they had, and I was one of them. One of them was, they did more curriculum development. They were just kind of like writing content, so never really had any instructional design background. So there was me and one other person that was just generally really instructional designers that can take you from the needs analysis all the way to the evaluation, and develop the program. So they brought me on to do that initially. So all I did was basically learn the system, because I'm IT, I can get that really fast. So I learned the system, and started outlining and talking with the client for needs analysis and developing the curriculum and everything that needed to be done. Hired some trainers, trained the trainers on the system with the new curriculum that we drafted, curriculum that we developed, honed the curriculum, and then shelled it out and rolled it out to like 6,000 folks. um, to learn that system. And so once that project was done, then there's another project.
Yeah,
So I'm
wow.
just doing different projects with clients. Sometimes you're focused on this one project for this length of time. Sometimes there's multiple projects where you're like half time here, half time there.
Hmm. Hmm. So when you're working as a consultant for with a title of human capital and organizational
Yeah.
transformation, I mean, where exactly how does that relate to instructional design in there?
Okay.
Maybe just
Okay.
give us
Good.
some insight into
Good
that.
question. I can give you the example of that the initial project that I was on. The human capital umbrella of that was that there's a new system being implemented into this huge human services department,
Mm.
and they needed just in my framework, of course, training, but outside of my framework, we provided business readiness, a business readiness team, an organizational business ready team, where they really assess who are the personnel that you have. Will the titles change now? Will the jobs change now that the system is taking over a couple things? Or a couple functionalities that personnel would usually perform. Now they're streamlined and automated. Where does this person or this staff go? So
Mm.
the human capital part of it, I was just a piece of it, where we made sure that the organization was and the change was seamless, from implementation to like post implementation. So that human
Hmm.
capital piece, I was in there where the training was part of it. Communications was another part of it. There's a communications team, then there's a testing team, then there's a whole lot of other folks and super users and a lot of all of that, so that the organization itself can still operate in its old mode, but that when we switch to the new system, it's
Hmm.
all seamless. And the end user, which is like in this case, the residents of Georgia that would like benefit from this system working, or these caseworkers using this system, um, don't notice. They're not heavily impacted by that
Okay.
change.
Interesting. How have you had to change? Has your mindset changed at all from being just a regular instructional designer, or
Mhm.
and now you're working in human capital and organizational transformation?
Mhm.
Have you had to have like a mental shift at all?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
because in the consultant world, um, the clients can vary so much. Um, like for instance, I went from a state client to a federal client. There's a lot of different things that happen there. Um, I don't even know how to explain it, but my mindset changed in that I definitely was. I think I was definitely like, or just that small department focused on, okay, let's make sure that this department works and that we have the functionality and processes in place, and like in that realm. But now that I'm in the consultant world, you just kind of have to step out and
Hmm.
go out a little bit more and understand the other parts. For instance, you have to understand that you're on an agile project. You know what I mean? You have to understand that there's iterations and sprints, and sometimes your deadlines are kind of aligned with those things.
Hmm.
So, and I know you had a question earlier, even an email, like what do you wish you had known?
Hmm.
In my formal training as in information design and instructional design, I know that we talked about project management, but I think it would be really good if they taught change management. Like, it's so important in this consultant world for me. I think that was a really big piece that helped me change my mind. I mean, change, and like there's a mind shift here, and we're even talking now more on human centered change.
Yeah.
Human centered design and learning experience and things like that. So.
Wow. So change management has been something that's been really important for you.
Yeah.
Is there anything specific that you did to become more familiar with how change management works, or to develop a skill set
Yeah.
and learn more about it?
Yeah. So on a couple of projects, I just happened to have to work alongside change management folks. Like, hey, we're going through this change, and your training is part of this process. And so I had to learn that the process through them, and then kind of did some official, like I did some agile, got an agile certification just for project management. But then internally, we had some human-centered change learning sessions that they kind of helped us with. But I had to learn it, and specifically, it was more about understanding the process and the human-centered part, the human part of change, and your piece in L&D and training and instructional design, and how very important it is for you to keep in mind what that change does and how it trickles down to a lot of different pieces. Not only does it impact process, right, but that change can impact, people's jobs. Are they still there after the change? And whatever change you implemented, did it work?
Yeah.
Just like when we do in instructional design, the curriculum that we developed, did it work? Did they learn? Did they retain anything? So that mindset was just really important to have.
Yeah, like Danny is mentioning here, big picture thinking. I think
That
that kind of sums it up.
it really is.
Yeah. So I do have a question here for you on being a consultant. So over the past year and a half, you've probably seen sort of a shift in organizational transformation because of the pandemic. Is there anything that you've noticed specifically that you might be able to relate that you can share with us that you might have seen?
Yeah, and your image is gone, Lewis, again.
Oh,
by the way.
Okay. It might come back. It's probably
Okay. At the beginning, I actually was a little bit worried because I was thinking, okay, so now we're going virtual, and I felt like a lot of our clients were going to be so super stressed with the things that they had to do that they wouldn't kind of keep up with their original asks from us as far as the projects that we were on. And I thought we would kind of not have as many requests for us to do work because we are in the people business, and we were very personable as far as we would walk to I was downtown. So one of our clients' building was right down the street. We would walk down the street, we would have sessions at the client's office, or we would go on the client's site. And so I was just thinking, well, they probably won't really have the wherewithal to deal with us right now because they're trying to keep their personnel and try to stay where they are. But that was totally not the case. We got more business through the pandemic because they had to try to work virtually, one, but then also shift a couple things depending on what the project was. They had to shift their mindsets about whether or how their personnel was functioning at their top potential virtually versus on campus or on site. And the mindset of everyone needs to be here was actually stressing employees out. I don't feel safe coming to work. I don't feel safe even interacting or using the same bathroom as everyone else on this floor. And so companies had to say, well, is this very necessary or not? And is this safe? And it took some folks a while, which is weird to me, but my company was not. They were like, okay, yeah, we're doing virtual.
Yeah.
And, travel with permission or with, a screening where you're traveling to and all that. But I did find as far as clients were concerned, their need for us to help them with change, right? We had to actually do some training and close some learning gaps with working virtually, right? And being efficient. We also had to really come to terms with the fact that we won't have all the answers, and being able to communicate that we don't have all the answers with us as you're asking us, but we have a plethora of resources that we can come back to you with and come up with a cohesive plan for you. So that was helpful as well, because I think for me, I kind of felt awkward with like, yeah, I have an idea. I know how these things work. I know how we can get them in their process from A to B, but I can't answer them right now. We really need to do some analysis, ask a lot of questions, do some interviews, and then come up with a plan so for them to operate um, at their optimal capacity.
That's amazing. So you must have learned a lot. I mean, over this last year and a half,
I
there's
did.
a
I
lot that.
did.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, like, who are you primarily working with when you're going through this stuff? Is it like HR that you're mostly sort of dealing with, or?
Oh, it's no, because the only way, and there's a team, and I'm not with that team. There's a team within Deloitte that's all L&D and it's HR focused, because that L&D is for Deloitte. It's for training Deloitte employees, change for Deloitte employees, advancement, talent, and all those things for Deloitte employees. So our HR is focused on that piece. I am going towards the client and providing a skill and a service to that client. When it comes to those type of decisions for the client, it's usually their L&D or training lead that I'm working with. I'm never really directly with an HR person with the
I
client.
see.
For me, I usually work with my counterpart on the other side. That's how it usually works.
Now, so you were talking about how change management has been important to you, but you also have a background in project management. Like, how important has that been for your career? And do you think that it has been beneficial? Something that an instructional designer should also try to have in their toolkit?
Yes, because if you are at the level that you are managing and creating, like I did, a training program, you're starting from scratch, you have to have some project management skills. You have to understand and be ready to tackle those things that have to do with personnel, resources, budget, staffing, change. It's just really important. And as an instructional designer, even if you're not managing a huge program, just in the realm of instructional design and learning and development, the project management, meaning you may have, 5,000 pages of materials. You may have, I don't know, a certain type of curriculum. That's a lot of information that you have to manage, and you have to track when it's done and when it's complete, when it's being revised, when it's being tested, when it's being used or piloted. You have to track all those things and who's doing that. So project management is really important.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. I was wondering about that. I thought, because I had that question for you about, like, if you can go back and give advice to yourself, like, I thought for some reason that project management might be the one thing that you would bring up, but
that would too. Project and change management is really important. Like I would tell you, like, I know one of your questions was, like, what do you wish you knew, or how do you, tool or something? I don't know, but I know there's a tool or a skill that I wish I was better at, that I'm getting better at. And I know it's really strange, but it's like Excel and Power Query and Power BI. And that's because for me, a lot of times I'm on a project, even the project that I'm on now, is that there is a lot of moving pieces with regard to content and material that we have to work with. So you just imagine a large curriculum where, let's just say you have 12 lessons. Let's just say that. I'm just doing it ballpark, but 12 lessons. And each of those lessons is just like a really big different pieces of those lessons. And that's content from scratch that you have to manage. Who's doing that? How long is it going to take? Who's proofing it? When do we have the client review it? When do we need it back from the client? And then, how do you track the status of all those different pieces? And like I have this great person on our team who like really knows Excel really well. And I know Power BI as well, but there's like these little dashboards that we can create to kind of manage where we are with the materials. So.
Yeah. And everything is so data driven nowadays, and
it is
good reason. So,
and client wants status.
Right.
So.
Right. And knowing that stuff is just key.
Yeah, well, we're 60% through with our curriculum development, and we have 20% in your pocket, blah, blah, blah,
Right. Totally. Now our 30 minutes time has gone by so quickly.
Oh, wow.
Once again, I'm just like amazed at how this happens, but I do want to ask you a few more questions if that's okay.
Okay.
So, Tanacha, who or what keeps you inspired?
Actually, honestly, the team members, folks that I've worked with, always come back and say, "What are you working on? I want to work with you again." That keeps me inspired. Clients saying, clients asking for me by name, that keeps me inspired. And also learning. I'm telling you, I learned like this past couple of years, I learned the Power BI. Like I will learn something else by the end of the year. You know what I mean? I learned like Salesforce administration, because it's just part of the job. Whatever the client is asking for, I end up learning it. So that keeps me inspired.
Yeah, I love it. That's actually I don't hear that one very much, but that's a good one because it's true. It's just as a learning professional, you're also constantly learning, and so you just pick up a couple different skills a year, and that always just keeps people going.
Yeah.
So if you weren't an L&D professional, what do you think you'd be?
I would be in communications.
Yeah.
I know I would be in communications, media, or something. I would be designing or creating something and communicating.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very cool. And if there's one thing that people should know about you, what is it?
Definitely, I am a lifelong learner. My ears and eyes are always open. I am okay with making mistakes. I love trial and error. I've learned, it sticks harder that way. But definitely, I'm a lifelong learner.
Excellent. Tanacha, thank you so much for spending time with me this morning and chatting about your background. Fascinating. I'm you're the various like verticals you've been in and all the different skill sets you have. It's definitely you are obviously extremely competent at what you do, and it's great to have you on the broadcast. And I'm glad that you posted your LinkedIn profile at the beginning of the broadcast. But I'll go ahead and paste it in one more time. So if folks, if you want to connect with Tanacha, please do. And so thanks everybody. Thanks for joining, and happy Friday to everyone. Don't forget, register for AIDC 21. It's our accessible and inclusive design conference. It's free. Gosh, I think there are over like 400 people already registered for it. So,
nice.
And I think that number is going to increase over the next couple weeks. So please join us there. And like Kim says, have a great weekend, all. Thanks, Tanacha.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. All right, bye, everybody.